Hello, everybody. Type in the chat so I know you can hear me. And also, let me know if the music that I have on in the background is too loud. Or too quiet. So there's probably a big delay on here. So just let me know. Okay, I see. Okay, people are talking. Okay, so you can hear me. Say something, just like say I can hear you, if you don't mind. Oh, okay, great, great, great. Sweet. Okay, well, I've packed a bowl, and I have put some shatter in my pen. I haven't had shatter for a while, so I got some the other day. So you're gonna have to take like small breaks and just like listen to me inhale cannabis throughout this whole thing. Not necessarily trying to hide my face, but this effect is awesome, so I'm using it. Okay, I think I'm gonna get started. So there were a bunch of questions that people sent in, and oh, say a number and then we repeat the number to calibrate the lag. What do you, I don't know what that means, but I'm not gonna worry about it too much. It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna do my thing here. Okay, so let's see, let's get to the first question that people sent in, and then I'll try to get through these, and then save it in the chat if you want, like, save your question until I'm done reading the pre-sent ones. So, yeah, I tend to speak a lot when I'm talking about my music and stuff. I just, like, say a lot, so I'm gonna try and, you know, get through this kind of fast if I can. So the very first question that came in comes from a sir by the name of Doug Kaplan, and he wants to know if he can give some little kisses to my cats if they let him. They will almost always let you do this. You have my permission, and you know, there are only rare circumstances in which you would not be able to give them little kisses if they were upset. And perhaps you're one of those kinds of people that likes to not wake up a cat when they're sleeping. I try to let them sleep if they're sleeping, but every once in a while you have to just kiss the cat, and then the cat wakes up and becomes activated, but it's okay. So anytime you want to come over and kiss my cats, maybe after the pandemic, just let me know. Rebecca from San Francisco asks what my thoughts on Chick Corea are. And, well, first of all, I didn't come to jazz the right way. I didn't come to jazz through, you know, Bill Evans and Duke Ellington, Miles Davis even. I mean, I like all those players, of course, but my journey into jazz was weird. I was exposed to it a lot growing up when I was learning music, and I was constantly sort of pushed to learn jazz, and I never wanted to because I just wanted to learn Metallica and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Dream Theater and Rush and stuff like that. And usually when you want to learn music, not even when you want to learn jazz, but when you want to learn music, the academic world wants you to learn classic jazz first. Learn your jazz standards, get those out of the way. And I just like, bleh, I like was not into that at all. So I would hear jazz in the background, and I wouldn't really like a lot of the older stuff, a lot of the swing stuff, but I would also hear a lot of fusion because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and you know, jazz fusion and very simplified forms of jazz fusion were very prevalent in waiting rooms and commercials and films and soundtracks and stuff like that, video games even. So I was very exposed to it, and I loved it. But my family life was more centered around rock music. So we just like didn't have like fusion records coming in and out of the house. So I had to find it later on in my life. I got into it when around the time vaporwave started becoming popular, and I would hear artists like Telepath sample a lot of the old stuff that I had overheard in my childhood repeatedly, and it just stirred up this crazy interest and fascination in me, and then I like dove right into jazz like head first, and like lost interest in most other kinds of music. And Chick Corea definitely came up in my journey and my searching, and there's a couple of records that he's on that I'm in love with, but it's like my journey into jazz was like through the Weather Channel and like library music and TV show theme songs even. So, you know, you just wanted to know if I was into Chick Corea, but the answer is yes, but I feel like I had to tell that little story because it's like I just don't have the jazz background a lot of my jazz freak friends and fellow musicians have. So it's like, yeah, I love Chick Corea, but I'm not saying that from a place of like somebody who is like really into like classic jazz. I feel like I have to make that distinction because people be like, oh, you love jazz too? Like, what's your favorite Miles Davis record? And I'm just like, I've probably only heard like half of them, and I don't know which ones I love a lot necessarily. So it's like, you know, different kind of jazz fan, kind of like a cheater when it comes to jazz. So yeah, he was on this record by Eric Marienthal called Crossroads. He played piano on that album, and that's like one of my favorite fusion albums ever. You probably want me to comment on the Scientology that Chick is involved in, but I guess I'm gonna move on. I guess I'll really quickly say he seems to be one of those like Scientologist celebrities that can kind of do whatever they want, and they have a relationship with the Scientology, you know, Godhead. But they treat him well, and he's nice to them, and it's like this nice relationship they have. It's not like that for everybody, obviously, in Scientology. Let's see, Tom, that was way too long of an answer. I'm gonna try and be quicker. Tom from Maryland, I wonder if I know him because I grew up in Maryland, wants to know who my favorite fringe artists are nowadays, people I think that are talented and deserve more recognition, who influence my work. Love your work. I tell people about it often. Your songs are creative and imaginative. Thank you, Tom. Well, a lot of the, I guess, I don't know if you would call these fringe artists, but if you're referring to stuff that's maybe rare and obscure, not in the mainstream or never really was, you know, again, I listen to a lot of fusion, so I listen to a lot of just bargain bin stuff that I guess most people don't care about, but it's like I'm really fascinated with digging in. I want to hear like every single like fusion record ever made in someone's bedroom in the 80s that never got published or whatever. Like I want to hear, I like want all of that stuff, and all of that stuff like really inspires me a lot. I guess if you're talking about fringe artists, like current ones, like, I mean, I love noise, and obviously noise is like a fringe genre, if you want to call it a genre. I guess Mothcock is fringe, right? I mean, Mothcock rules. Everything on Orange Milk Records, I guess, is maybe not everything, but I guess could be considered fringe. I guess I don't really know what that word means, but if you mean like challenging artists that are like doing new stuff and pushing boundaries, then yeah, those, a lot of that Hausu Mountain artists, Keith Rankin and Seth Graham, who run Orange Milk, like all of their original music is incredible. And I guess you could call this guy an up-and-coming artist, but this guy, Kyle Jameson, he put out a record called View From Above recently on Bandcamp that I've been spamming all over the internet. And though he makes very nice, new agey, electronic, jazz fusion, sort of easy listening, kind of spacey stuff, I guess that's Fringe, right? In a way. So I also think Galen Tipton is absolutely incredible at music. I guess, I don't know. I guess she would be considered a Fringe artist. I listen to a lot of metal stuff. Like, I listen to a lot of gent because I'm way late to the game. I prefer the fusion-y kind of stuff, and I guess like extreme metal and prog metal is kind of Fringe too. I love Pliny and Chimp Spanner, the Surrealist, Disperse, Vola, Arc Echo, Exvius, even though they broke up, and I'm really obsessed with the Contortionists, especially their album Language. So yeah. Joey from Austin asks, your album openers are consistently absolute bangers. What's your philosophy around structuring an album, and what about that lends to such short yet explosive opening tracks? Gnosis Oozing being an absolute prime example of this. I've never really thought about it. I think what my intention is, and this is something I've discovered after doing it a lot. I didn't really know why I did it, and that's usually the case with most of the music I make. I don't know why I do anything. I think what I'm trying to do is just make a first impression that is not only exciting, but I think sometimes what I really want to do is be confusing. Or another thing I think I want to do is try to... It's like the opening lines of your speech, or it's like the first scene of a movie. I mean, you really think a lot about it, and it's like there's so many tracks that could be opening tracks that would be good, but there's something about the short, sort of explosive ones. I think I want to try, and trying to put this into words, I just want to say something to people right off the bat as an introduction that is perhaps intense, perhaps confusing, perhaps will pique interest. Now, I don't really make music to get anybody else to feel or think anything at all, but it's like, I don't know. I know it's the first track. I know that for a lot of people, it's going to be the first thing they hear. And like with this on my new album, Rainbow Bridge, the first track, I was just like, I remember sitting in my room being like, God, it would be so funny if I started off my album with just like metalcore. Like real drums, real guitar, screaming, like make it sound like a Norma Jean song. Because, you know, with Fire-Toolz, people expect mostly electronic stuff. So I thought that would be interesting. I thought it would make people go like, whoa, like wasn't expecting that or something. And I also try to get a lot of stuff out of the way real quick at first, and then can really move more slowly through things. I don't really move slowly in general, but like compared to an opening track, I do that. You know, I'm thinking about most of my other opening tracks. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are a little misleading in the sense that they give an impression that isn't exactly accurate for the rest of the album. And I love that too. I love just kind of throwing people off or screwing people up or something. So Josh Sigmund from Chicago, who I talk to via email quite often, God, I realized I haven't been looking at the chat at all, but I'm probably not going to look at the chat very much until I'm done going through these. I swear I'm going to try to be faster. Maybe if I hit this weed, I'll go faster. That's how that works, right? You got to hit a bowl before talking to Joshua Sigmund. And that is no insult. I love him. We have such good conversations. Also, oh no, his question is, do you sometimes think the north wind is Hyperborean anthropomorphic creatures whistling on the high winds in the eternal upper luminary freshness? Also, what do you think is the best thing ever in your mind right now? Now, this question is insane, and you probably expected me to take it a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But I typed a little bit of an answer, so I'm gonna try and answer it. Oh, and I think I actually skipped a question, but I'll go back to it. Okay. So, I think that regarding the north wind as hyperborean anthropomorphic creatures whistling on the high winds in the eternal, upper liminary freshness is a very useful way of living life, so long as one's not too dogmatic about it. Spirituality is all about holding the physical and time and space and the eternal now all at once, both levels all at once. And I think that, like this, your question kind of reminds me of like Greek mythology. Like, you know, the Greeks, like, they had their myths and their philosophy, where, you know, gods and goddesses are you know, associated with certain phenomenon. And, you know, I'm sure that, you know, in the prime time, ancient Greek times, there, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think there are really a lot of people who believed with all their heart that, like, literally Zeus was like an entity, like a humanoid entity, like, that lived literally in the sky, that literally, like, you know, made lightning happen and whatever. It's a very, very useful mythology, and a lot of spiritual traditions have that. And you can come up with the most insane question and say, do you think that regarding this as, you know, garden gnomes is, you know, what do you think about that? I would say, if it's useful to you, like, absolutely. Like, that's what myths are for, I think, or one of the things they're for. He also asked what the best thing in my mind right now is, and I also typed this up. I said living in a cottage on a mountain where I have a gigantic fenced-in yard where my cats can run free and chase butterflies while I listen to 80s Tangerine Dream and cry daily. That's the best thing in my mind, and would be a dream. So, Thomas Saulnier, I don't know, sorry, I'm going to mispronounce a lot, from South Burlington, Vermont, asks, what are your views on sample-based vapor? Do you feel that sample-based stuff is low effort or uses existing musical context as a crutch? I love your recent work in both composition and mastering. All the best. Very loaded question for me. I have all kinds of opinions about vaporwave, just as many positive ones as I do negative. I mean, I don't know if you call it like oh, see, I'm reading text messages from Doug and forgetting what I'm saying. I'm just gonna text him the money sign to let him know I read his text. So yeah. Well, first of all, one of my longest running projects in my musical history is Mindspring Memories, which is 110% samples. Will always be. The only time I used stuff that wasn't samples is when I did a remix for my friend Ben Billington, who does a project called Quick Sales. My remix appears on his tape called The Bright, which is available through Hausu Mountain. That I did a Mindspring Memories remix because he specifically requested that project, and it was really hard because the piece that I was remixing was, you know, just not the type of music that I usually sample. I usually sample 80s fusion and jazz and synth pop and stuff like that. So it was really hard to do, and I was like, this thing needs some 808s and some snares and stuff, so I did some musical stuff in there that wasn't just sampling and processing, which is not how I usually do it, so I made an exception, but it's almost always samples. So your question, you know, is it low effort and is existing music used as a crutch? Well, I don't think effort is, how do you say this? It's not linear, adjacent, what do you call it when it's the same as something else? Effort and time and labor and stuff like that they're not like linear. They don't move the same way. It's like, you know, I can realistically, let's see, my average time putting together a Mindspring track, which is all samples that I chop up and process, on average, maybe like an hour to 2 hours, I can like get a really nice song like done and never have to go back to it and edit it. And if you were racing me and was like, put together a legit Mindspring track that's like 4 minutes long, like how fast can you do it? I don't know. maybe like 30 minutes to 45, because I mean, you need some time. You really have to listen to it. You have to get into the mood. It's really emotional music to me, so you have to like, you know, you have to sink in a little bit. But you know, I don't spend too much time doing that stuff. But to say it would be low effort is not, it's not that it's insulting. It's just like not true, because effort, there's so much effort that went into this project prior that came up to this point. And it's like sample hunting and curation, and like, you know, when you're using samples to make a song, like you, even though you didn't like write and record all of those melodies and drum parts and bass lines, it still has to sound like something that you resonate with on a very deep level. And Mindspring tracks, like maybe with the exception of like one or two, like they all, like I do feel like I wrote them in a way. Like I didn't write the melodies, but I went out and I took that stuff and I did a bunch of stuff to it, and I'm giving it back out to the world because it got filtered through me. I took what someone else made, something that I love, and just did a little molding and shit to it, and maybe a little addition and a little subtraction and blah blah blah, and like made it into something that maybe I didn't create from the ground up, but it's just, it's hard to put into words, but it's just, it's really important. It's really important music. Now, of course, a lot of people probably use it as a crutch. There's a lot of people out there that just want a vaporwave project. They want an excuse to use a moniker. Or they just like want to be part of something. Or they want to make music and they have no idea how to play instruments, so they go to sampling first. Like there's so many reasons. Like there's tons and tons of just shitty, lifeless, heartless, pointless vaporwave out there, for sure. But even artists who don't, like Death's Dynamic Shroud, they do all kinds of crazy shit, like composition-wise, with the samples that they use. But like Telepath, when Telepath was first making music, like, I don't know, his first like freaking 10, 15 albums or something, were all like entirely samples, at least as far as I know. But the way he rearranged them and processed them, like I feel like crying. Like I'm getting goosebumps right now because it's just so good and it's so perfect, and it's like no one will ever make music like Telepath's original stuff. Like his early stuff, like his current stuff is wonderful too, but I love it in a totally different way. It's like not quite the same for me on a deep level, and it's like nobody will ever top that. Nobody will ever be able to do that the way he did it. You know, it's just, so when I think about effort and I think about the fact that, oh, like maybe Telepath like made some of those albums in like 3 days, I don't know, like that means absolutely nothing. Like if music to you is about the amount of time you spent, or the amount of skill you have, or the amount of training you have, or like anything other than like your creative idea and the passion you put into it, like music is not about all of that other stuff. It's not about skill, it's not about labor or anything like that. Like, at least that's just the way I look at it. So I don't know, anyone who associates sample-based music in general with low effort in general is being incredibly close-minded, and they're unable to see the nuance in an incredibly colorful thing. So anyway, let's move on. Gonna hit that shatter. I'm gonna hit that LaCroix. You probably want to know what flavor it is. This is lime. I have an orange next to me though, to drink afterward. I'm hoping that I get a few visits from the cats, but I haven't seen any yet. Jeremy Ashworth from Dayton, Ohio, one of my favorite places in the country. No sarcasm, believe it or not. I'm probably going to be assuming I'm going to try not to assume pronouns on the people that I don't know. But it is very likely that Jeremy is a he. Likely, but who fucking knows. Would you ever attempt to recreate your music with a live band? Oh my god. Yes. I mean, I would just love to do that. But God, it's gonna take a lot. If you're referring to Fire-Toolz, I don't know how I would do it. I'd have to make a special set list, you know, because some songs just like wouldn't happen that way, wouldn't work that way. But yeah, I would love to. I can't really write sheet music, and I figure. I mean, I can write sheet music, but it takes me like 100 times longer than anyone else because I have to sit there and be like, you know, like E, A, D, G, like, you know, I can't sight read. I can sight read rhythm, but not melody at all. So, you know, the programs I use to make music, they'll automatically generate sheet music from the MIDI, but it's a little bit wonky, and it should only really be used as a guide when you don't know what you're doing. When you're just getting the sheet music from the MIDI, like directly, without altering anything, it should just be a guide, because it's a little wonky. So I would have to do that, and I would have to find people that could like read it and learn it, and I'd have to pay them. I'd have to hire these people. So it would be a lot of work. But, you know, I would rather do this with my project Non-Local Forecast, actually. I've thought about it a lot. It would still be an instance in which I'd have to hire people. I would need like 2 or 3 synth players, basically, because a lot of times there's a lot of synths going on at once, unless I had backing tracks. They'd have to have Korg M1s or Korg Wave Station synths, which are old and expensive, but you can, I mean, obviously you can use the VSTs, because that's how I do it, so you could, yeah, you could do that way. I would need a fretless bassist. I would need a guitarist who, I don't know, maybe also plays sax, or maybe a sax player, but there's not sax in enough songs to have like a dedicated sax player. And my idea was for me to play drums, because I can play the drums on every Non-Local Forecast song, but as far as the other instruments, well, I can play bass too. And guitar, yeah, easily. But there's not enough guitar or bass for me to have something to do all the time, so I would play drums. As far as all the synth parts, I can play a lot of them, but there's definitely some I can't play, like crazy synth solos. Like, I've never... If you hear a crazy-ass synth solo in a Fire-Toolz song, like, I can't. If you hear it live, it's a backing track, because I can't shred like that. So yeah, a live band would be sick. I would love to do that. Just have to pay people and have time, and then I would do it. So Corey, oh man, Corey, you knew this was gonna happen. Bertelsen. You know, we just kind of shove the syllables together when we read words like that. You're from New York, and you ask, you're curious what other art or media, games or books in particular, I enjoy. Any recommendations? Also, if you could be any kind of bug, what would you be? And what was your preferred drink while working on the album? And also, Dam from, I guess it's Dam. Dom, it's probably Dom, D-A-M. I mean, I'm sorry, Dam, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, person from Australia. You asked a similar question about like books and authors, so I'm just gonna answer these questions at once. Well, as far as games, I'm not a gamer, but I do love playing Super Nintendo and Nintendo. It's a nostalgia thing, I guess. Makes my heart feel cozy. I just bought a new Super Nintendo like last month, and I bought a game Genie. But it didn't work very well, so I sent it back and got another one, and it didn't work very well, so I sent it back, and I'm gonna get another one soon. Cause I'm not good at games. Like, I just want to have fun, and sometimes cheating is really fun. As far as authors and books, now, I really don't read very much. Like, you know, I want to be that person that's always reading, but I don't like it. I read some, but I mostly listen to audiobooks. I mean, that's how I get my text. And if there's no audiobook of what I want to hear, but there's an ebook. I'll buy it. I'll copy and paste all the text. I'll make my computer read it to me. And I used to listen to hours and hours of philosophy, spirituality, psychology, religious history, every weekday when I worked at my old job, because I got to listen to headphones. But now that my main job is mixing and mastering and music, like, I don't get as much of it. So I just have my morning ritual. I usually listen to things. And then I work for some people who do podcasts and video presentations, like spiritual ones. So I have to edit all that stuff, so I have to listen to all of it. So that's a big plus. Let's see, who though? Well, let's see, let's pick some traditions. When it comes to Buddhism or Zen, I really love Thich Nhat Hanh, Pema Chodron, Robert Thurman, Zenju Earthland Manuel, so many. I mean, there's so many. The whole Rinpoche lineage, there's a lot of great people in there, and a lot of corrupt people as well. Well, when it comes to like contemplative, non-dual, mystical Christianity, I have to put all those words in there first, because I don't want anything to do with the modern church down the street kind of dogmatic fundamentalist Christianity. So when it comes to that tradition, I really love Richard Rohr. He's an author and he's technically a Franciscan priest, who's just incredible and kind of changed my life. And Cynthia Bourgeault, I think is how you say it, is somebody in his camp who I really like a lot. I mean, I love Sufism too, so I mean, Rumi is, the best. Really interested in Kabbalah as well, the Jewish mystical tradition, and there's this guy, Zvi Ish Shalom, who I've edited an interview with before, who's got some great insight on it. This lady, Danny Antman, she does like Reiki healing and Kabbalah as well. When it comes to like ancient Hindu traditions, like Advaita Vedanta, Sri Sarvapriyananda is awesome, or Sri Sarvapriyananda. He is like the big cheese at the New York Vedanta Society, and he's written stuff. He gives lectures all the time on like Hindu spirituality and philosophy and everything. I also really love Eckhart Tolle. He's changed my life. He's just like a, I guess, interfaith or non-faith even spiritual teacher. Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi are both huge deals. They have lots of books, lots of teachings. Miranda McPherson is a modern teacher I really love, who kind of just combines like Advaita Vedanta and contemplative Christianity and like Zen and stuff into her teachings all at once. Let's see, other media. I like watching silly YouTubers. Not like garbage YouTube, but usually people that talk about garbage YouTube. I really like Drew Gooden, Danny Gonzalez, Curtis Connor. I like Churdleys. They're hilarious. And every once in a while, some of these people I'm mentioning are kind of problematic or like make some jokes that I really don't like, but I mean, they're mostly fine. I really love the ContraPoints series and channel by Natalie Wynn. She's incredible and makes me cry with every single video she makes. I love Adam Neely and Rick Beato, both of their YouTube channels, and Ben Levin. PBS Spacetime is one of my favorite things, quantum physics and cosmology and stuff. And Buddha at the Gas Pump, Conscious TV, New Thinking Aloud, Science and Non-Duality. Three of those actually I've edited stuff for. Bug. I would be a really shiny beetle, a huge shiny beetle that flew, and I'd be really nice to everybody and never scare anybody. What did I drink when making Rainbow Bridge? Coffee and LaCroix. That's all I drink. That's actually all I drank. That's not good. That's actually not good, is it? Yeah, I should maybe get some juice in there or something. Um, oh, and there's one more part to your question. No, there wasn't. There wasn't one more part. Okay, next one. I need to go fast. I'm gonna go fast. Okay, Michael Elder from Vancouver, Canada. Bubble Universe by your other project, Non-Local Forecast, is one of the best electronic albums ever made. Do you plan on making another one like it? I literally got the test press a couple days ago, so maybe by the end of this year, that's the plan. But the pandemic may have set that back. We'll see what happens. And if it did set it back, not by much, like maybe a month or two or something. So yeah, probably this year. I'm so excited. It's been done for a long time. It was done way before like Rainbow Bridge came out. Like I've been right on top of it. Guest sax players and a guest keyboardist, Kyle Jamison, who I mentioned earlier. He's on it. Oh, it's gonna be so good. I can't wait. God. It's killing me. I can't wait. Okay. So Josh, from Northern Ireland, wants to know, hi Angel, I hope you're well. How do you know when an album or EP you're working on is finished, and is there a process you go through? Is it a feeling or something else? It is a deadline. I will work on it until I'm not allowed to anymore. I mean, I would say maybe 30% of the time I finish a song and I'm like, ooh, that's done, and I like don't ever go back except for like right before I go to bounce it out to go to mastering. I might just like double check everything. But that's only like 30% of the time. I mean, I'm working on new stuff already. I have 15 half-baked ideas like already going, or no, I'm sorry, 19. I just, when I work on them, sometimes I just open one at random and then I just screw around. So I just keep doing that until Doug is like, like we need your mixes. So I feel like if I was given more time, I would just keep working on it. Not because it's like not good enough, but just because the way I work, it's just never ending. Like I just want to keep making stuff, and if I'll either keep making a song or I'll keep making stuff by starting a new one. Jackson Montgomery from Morgantown, West Virginia, which is a simultaneously beautiful and scary place because I've been there a few times. It's a wild and crazy college town, but it's also just really gorgeous. Sometimes I want to move to West Virginia, and then I realize it's a bad idea. What can I do with compressors besides making drums, bass, and the master bus sound fuller? I also really want to just know about your mastering chain in general, but I'm sure someone else will ask that. Love all your projects. I don't think anyone else asked that, but I didn't look at all the questions yet. What can I do with compressors besides making drum space and the master bus sound fuller? Well, you can use it for transient control. You can even use it to add a color to your sound, add saturation, because there are digital compressors that are totally transparent and don't really color the sound besides the actual compression, the volume change. But there's lots and lots of ones that can really color your sound and make it a lot fuller because they have saturation algorithms built in. Well, I'm just talking about VSTs. I mean, they're modeled after hardware. So there's that, and yeah, sometimes something just needs a little bit more consistency. Like sometimes it's a little bit of a lazy thing. Like if there's an element where it's like every other note is like too quiet, like a hi-hat or something, if it's like like if I want all of those notes to be like the same amount of loudness, I'll like try to make that happen with a compressor, and it doesn't do exactly that. Like it definitely colors the sound, and the audio that comes after the transient like gets louder. So it's like, but if it's really quiet in the mix, like those subtleties don't matter as much. So yeah, you can use it to just kind of like even things out, I guess. there's a lot of different uses for it, but it's all basically volume based and sometimes distortion. So yeah, if you want to know about my mastering chain, just you can just email me, because I might be able to go into more detail about it. My chain changes all the time depending on the release, but I always start with the same thing. Davey Hart, who is a really good friend of mine from Chicago, asks, "Hi Angel, how did you get so good at music? Specifically, how are you able to be so prolific, releasing so many albums under so many different projects? And how do you get so good at producing electronic music?" That's a weird question. So I'm gonna hit this bowl real quick. It's weird to answer how did I get so good. So instead I'll answer how did I get where I am now, I guess. I'm always afraid people are gonna be like, God, you're such an asshole. Like, I have to try so hard. Like, and music is so hard, and I've I've worked vigorously for years and years and years, and I can finally play the opening to Stairway to Heaven or something. But I'm just gonna be brutally honest with you. I don't try. I've never tried, except for a few times, and those times I got way better. But usually, it's just natural for me. Like, I remember I joined this really, really, really super technical, old Dillinger Escape Plan on acid, technical metal noise band. And I had to train hard on the guitar for several months to learn their songs because they were so fucking hard and fast. And it was great because I've not done that a lot in my life where I actually practice something. And it was so cool just watching my body eventually just get way better over the course of a few months. It was crazy. But most of this stuff is just because I just have a natural obsession and fascination and fixation on creating music, and I just haven't really been in a lot of situations where there was something I was trying to accomplish and I couldn't get it. But I don't challenge myself. That's a whole other part of this. I do not challenge myself, and it's kind of a bad thing, because it's when I said earlier, some of those keyboard solos and the non-local forecast stuff, I can't play any of those. They're all programmed. Well, I could. I mean, I'm 35 years old. I've been playing music all my life. Why the fuck can I not, shred a solo? Go on YouTube. There are 3-year-old kids that are better than I am at playing keyboards because they're prodigies and they have some sort of gift. I'm sure I could do it. I'm lazy about it in that way. I am so content with the music I make and plan on making that I almost feel like I'm too busy with where I am now to worry about getting somewhere further as far as skill. I could be at my skill level right now for the rest of my life and be perfectly content, and a lot of people might think that that's kind of not very admirable, is kind of shitty, but I don't know. I'm just happy with where I am, and when I do evolve, it happens naturally and over time, and I do get better at certain things over time, but it happens because I just keep doing it. It doesn't happen because I need to learn this thing. So I'm a lazy musician who got this skill without trying that hard, and that kind of makes me feel disgusting, but at the same time I'm also really, really grateful because I've saved a lot of money, saved a lot of time, had a lot of fun. So I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird thing. I feel strange about it, but I have to be honest about it. How can I release so many albums under different projects? I mean, same answer. I keep going. And it just happens. How did I get so good at producing electronic music? Well, out of necessity. I wanted to realize full albums, and I didn't have musicians around me that would do what I wanted them to do, and I didn't want to tell people what to do, and I couldn't pay people to do anything. So it's I'm just gonna make it all myself. So I taught myself how to make music on the computer. So MacDonald from Under the Sea wants to know, what's with all the Spongebob? Well, Spongebob only appears in Fire-Toolz twice, I believe. There's a quote at the beginning of a song off of the Drip Mental album, because the quote was perfect for the lyrics, and also because I just like SpongeBob, because who doesn't? And then he also showed up in my video for Rainbow Bridge, the song, at the end, because I was trying to look for graphics to illustrate the lyrics, and the line, soak you up, I say multiple times, so each time it happened I had to think of a different thing to put on the screen. So I think one of the soak you ups was a little glitched animation of SpongeBob. I'm not like super duper like huge. Oh gosh, there's another SpongeBob thing that popped up. You might have seen it in the background of some of my promo photos, and I think I was wearing a SpongeBob sweater in one of my promo photos. I don't know, it's kind of a coincidence. I mean, there's other stuff that I love a lot more in my life that, so to think of myself as like a SpongeBob diehard is strange, but now that I think about these three instances, I can see why it seems like I'm a huge SpongeBob nut. I mean, I love the guy, but it's, you know, it's not my obsession or anything. So, let's see, Dan in the Philippines wants to know, what's your creative process in making this refreshing sound of yours? I kind of already touched on this, but basically, the only reason my music sounds and is the way it is because I don't think about it. I mean, it's just free association, but it's messing with a computer. It's not, you know, I don't hit record and then make stuff in real time. I fuck around on the computer in a stream of consciousness, and I combine my ideas with like mixing and producing skills. I put them together and it just happens. So I could never like teach a course on this stuff, because I would just keep telling people, just do whatever you want, it'll be great, you don't have to try. And that's stupid. And you know what, that's not true, because I actually do train quite a bit when it comes to audio engineering. Lots and lots of tutorials, and I'm enrolled in a course and right now and everything, and 2 courses actually, I forgot about that. I have 2 going at the same time. So yeah, when it comes to mixing and mastering and stuff I get paid to do, on the technical side, there's training involved there. But, you know, when it comes to production and making songs and stuff like that, it's just like, I just puke it out. Lyle from Scotland says, I thoroughly enjoyed Bubble Universe, the Non-Local Forecast album. For me, it's undoubtedly the album of 2019. Will you be reassuming the Non-Local Forecast name to create another album? Yes, I answered that earlier. End of this year, probably. Early next year, maybe. What's your favorite breakfast cereal? I'm sorry, I got nothing but vanilla-ass answers for this. Just the, you know, the Cheerios and the Kix and the Golden Grahams and the Rice Krispies and the Cocoa Puffs, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms. They're all good. They're fine. I don't care. My friend Andrew from North Dakota wants to know if I ever feel burnt out on noise and or going to shows. For me, noise doesn't burn me out any more or less than anything else, because I kind of hear noise music as music, just like any other music. When it comes to fatiguing sounds that come with harsh noise, yeah, there's a time and a place, but there's also a time and a place for anything else. At the same time, you know, you wanted to know if I got burnout on going to shows. Well, yes, extremely, 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 and I didn't even go to that many. And the truth is, I don't go to many. And that's another thing I feel really strange about and a little guilty about, because my friends who make amazing stuff, you know, they're playing all the time. And, I mean, not right now, but they're, you know, they're even doing streams. And I don't go, I mean, streams are one thing. The streams don't count, because, you know, my not wanting to go to shows, you know, live streams kind of eliminate my issues. But I just never really went to a lot of them, and I don't really like shows because I don't really like going someplace late when I'm tired, being around a ton of people, a lot of really loud sounds and high energy, and I also, you know, admittedly have a lot of like kind of weird anxiety issues issues with agoraphobia, I guess you could say. Well, not necessarily fear of wide open spaces, because I love wide open spaces, but it's more like afraid of being out in public among people in situations in uncontrollable circumstances, you know. And I do what I got to do, and I am very deep into healing from some things in therapy and stuff like that. But in general, I don't enjoy shows. It's not, I mean, I love music and I love creating music and I love when my friends create music, but like, I don't know. I just don't enjoy it right now very much. It makes me uncomfortable. The truth is I got Burnout just by going to some and playing some, to the point where I rarely ever do it. But I think that someone who doesn't have the same kind of challenges I have internally about that stuff, you would probably get the same answer, though, that it can, you know, people can get burnout on anything really. So Wilson from Topanga, California, I absolutely love what you're putting into the world, and I'm excited to continue following the musical evolution and transformation. I stumbled upon your work when digging into the implications and theorizing around vaporwave. The way you incorporate its tropes are revelatory and also align with the visual objective I have for a script of mine. Would you potentially be interested in collaborating? Collab, brah? You want to collab? So, I mean, no, cause I don't have a lot of time. I only have time for my stuff and a little bit extra. I need to relax. I have 3 cats and I like spending time with. I work a ton. Even right now, I'm so blessed to be able to work right now in this time. And I haven't really done any collaborative projects with anybody for a really long time, and I do them very rarely because I just can't fit them in my life. Now, on the other hand, I do production for a living, and I mean, people pay me to do remixes, people pay me to produce original music, and anybody could pay me to work on a song with them. I mean, it sounds kind of shitty when you say like, no, I don't want to collaborate with you, but you can pay me and I'll collaborate with you. I know that sounds kind of awful, but it's more like, it's like my job to collaborate or make music. So it's like, I'm able to accept business, but I'm not able to add extracurricular activities to my life. Like, I can't join a soccer team just like I can't collaborate with you. You know what I mean? But let's talk about vaporwave theory and everything. That's fine. And you can also tell me about your project if you want. So Shoji from NYC says, I met you backstage at Electronicon 1. I performed at the after party. Just wondering if you remember me walking into you eating a slice of pizza. When I'm at events like that, my memory is made up of very, like, moments that you wouldn't think I would remember that get, like, burnt into my skull, and it's usually because I'll be feeling something at the time I was looking at something or doing something, so I'll, like, remember, like, this random bartender, only because I was, like, having some crazy feeling at the time. But then other stuff, like maybe bumping into you, can just completely leave my memory and I'll have no memory of it. Like, I don't know how many times people have been like, hey, like, remember me, and like, I absolutely do not. So I'm sorry I don't remember you, but I'm glad you went to that, and thanks for seeing me play. My friend, I'm not really sure how to say his name, Renan, R-E-N-A-N, he's from Brazil. We've talked via email a whole bunch about a lot of really cool stuff. He makes really super cool music, many different genres. We talked a lot about spirituality too. You have an extremely unique artistic expression expressed by a myriad of musical genres. Personally, what connects you with each of those genres? This is another one of those questions where the answer is like, I don't know. They just do. It's a resonance. I just hear stuff and I feel things. and that's all there is to it. It's very natural. I can't put a lot of logic behind these things. I would like to, because then I could put it on paper, but I don't know. I just love what I love. And I'm sorry I don't know how to pronounce this person from Belgium's name, but I believe the first name is Tijs. But I actually talk to this person quite often on Twitter, because they're releasing a Mindspring Memories cassette for me very soon. But I don't ever ask anybody their name, like, ever. So I have a hard time with names. How did you get into remixing and mastering and all of its theory? What is your advice to people who want to capture the basics of it? Well, I started doing it, the mastering and mixing, it's all out of kind of necessity, but then a love for it, like, developed very quickly, and I got, like, super fascinated with it, really into it. So that kind of evolved that way. And what advice would I give to people? I would say, if you're first starting out, you need to watch a lot of YouTube tutorials, but they need to be from multiple people that do different styles, very different people. Pick like 5 people who do these things on YouTube, and watch all their videos, and you're gonna find contrasting advice, and then you can feel your way out, and figure it out for yourself. See what works best in what situations. But there's so much free education out there that can get you started, and then when you really want to zoom in and refine it, then you can worry about, if you can't go to school, then there are courses out there on the internet that you can take. Is it Vrain, V-R-A-I-N, another name I'm sorry I can't pronounce, but they're from Seattle. I've noticed a distinct influence of 80s and 90s electro-industrial within your work, notably the dizzying use of samples and various vocal styles. Nods to Skinny Puppy and My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. Considering the new recent trend of bands pushing the envelope in this style, where do you see electro-industrial going in the current landscape of music, especially with the fusion with vaporwave and post-vaporwave? Well, my love for electro-industrial is old, mostly. I'm a huge old Nine Inch Nails fan. I didn't listen to very much Skinny Puppy growing up. I only really got into them much later in my life, like way later. So it was like Nine Inch Nails, and like I really like KMFDM too for some reason, which is, I feel like, kind of strange of me to at such a young age like be into that. It was probably the Mortal Kombat soundtrack that really kind of kicked that into action, actually. So maybe I wasn't that young, but so I'm not really up to date with electro-industrial at all. I mean, I am there's a few bands that are doing it now that I really like, but I'm just not. It's not really like a world that I'm like really drenched in, and I know it might seem like I am because of some of my music, especially some of the old music, but really what that is just my obsession with like Pretty Hate Machine and Broken and Downward Spiral and Further Down the Spiral. That's coming out right there. Like any electro-industrial you hear in my music is probably just like my Nine Inch Nails obsession coming out. You want to know about the future of the genre. I have no fucking idea. I don't know what the hell is going on in electro-industrial. Just like I don't really know what's going on in anything in music. Besides what already happened in the 80s, I guess. So the next one, Ben from West Rogers Park. In your opinion, what's the future of live performance? I think it's pretty obvious that live streaming will continue, but it won't be as huge because live performance will probably still happen unless pandemic doesn't really let up for a really long time or ever. Then maybe it'll go away. It would be terrible in a lot of ways, beneficial in some. It'd be really weird, but I don't know. None of us know what's going to happen. We don't need to. We can ponder it a little bit, but theorizing too much, focusing on the future in that way, I don't think is very useful. A way we can care about the future is by paying attention to right now and also learning from the past. that is what helps the future. Thinking about the future solely is not useful most of the time, in my opinion. So I think it's totally fine to not know. We need to be able to say, I don't know, more often in our lives. Mitch from I don't know where. On your average Fire-Toolz album, what percentage of the instruments are VST plugins, and what percentage are real synths and guitars, etc.? 99% of the time, the synths are VSTs. I have a bunch of small keyboards, but I don't have any really good synths at all, and never really had any. I owned a Juno 106 twice in my life, actually, when I was a teen and in my 20s. One I borrowed for a really long time, and then I gave it back. And then I borrowed another one from somebody down the street, and I broke a few of the keys, so I had to put on new ones. And I gave that back after a couple months. And then I owned one because my parents bought me one, and this wasn't like them to buy me a synthesizer, but I think my grandmother and them like pitched in and bought one from a local shop. And they were all of these that I'm talking about are Juno 106 because I just like fell in love with that synth. And so when one went on sale at the local music shop, you know, they were like, oh, we got to get this. But there was a problem with it. If it was on for more than a couple of minutes, it would start spitting out like white noise bursts. And fixing it was a huge pain in the ass for some reason. And a friend of mine who might be listening was borrowing it and said, you know, if you let me borrow this, I'll pay to get it fixed also. So I let him borrow it, and then he took it to get it fixed. And I think the quote was just like kind of rough for him. It was probably expensive, and he didn't pay to get it fixed. But I think that he didn't know that on the contract it said if you leave equipment here and don't pay for like 30 days, then they sell it or keep it or use it for parts or something. So that's what happened to my synth. So that's all the synth I've ever had in my life that wasn't on a computer. As far as electric guitars and acoustic guitars, well, I would say almost all of it is something I play. I'm just trying to think, are there samples on any of my songs where a guitar has come from someone else? I mean, yeah, like on my older material, I don't really sample anymore with Fire-Toolz, but I used to with my older material, and once in a while I will just throw in a clip from another band's song to be silly, and you know, their guitars might be in that clip. But as far as layering guitar parts into my original music, as far as I know, they've all been performed by me. But I can't remember every single detail. So, oh wow, this is so funny. The person that I lent my keyboard to, that's their question is next. That's funny. Jacob from Phoenix, Arizona, and I grew up with Jacob. He lived down the street from me, and we played in bands together, so we're tight. What inspires you the most in your visual and video aesthetic for Fire-Toolz? Your music seems to have the unique quality that every hit or sound, however random or spastic it may present, is an intentional and thought out. Are those aesthetics and imagery at random and chaotic, or are they based in meaning, intention, and maybe giving us insight into the sounds we hear? They're always extremely intentional. And on the rare occasion I do something that seems to me in the moment to be kind of random, it's not. It's it forms meaning somehow. And I don't really Fire-Toolz is so conceptual and meaningful, so there's always meaning. And when things seem random and chaotic, when they first went into the song, it might have been something that happened that had an element of unpredictability in it. But, you know, I spend so much time tweaking and mixing these songs that it's just like, you know, I'll tweak that little random thing. I'll change it a little, or I'll refine it to the point where, you know, everything is intentional, and I'll cut out anything that seems random that's pointless. Yeah, I'm just gonna move on because I just need to get some more. And Beep Beep wants to know where the name Fire-Toolz came from. It came from some old AOL hacking software. I put that in quotes because really it's just a way to annoy people. And I used to play around with some of that stuff when I was young. But I just really like the aesthetic appeal of, you know, vintage, like, computer badassery. You know, the name actually isn't as, like, conceptual and meaningful as a lot of the other stuff in my music and songs. But it stuck, and I just, like, really like the name. I was almost gonna call this project Netscape Navigator. And I'm glad I didn't, because this project got some recognition. I don't know if that would end up being a problem. It's kind of a cool name. It might have worked. But, you know. So, Arena from Austin, Texas wants to know if I take influence from artists such as Cynic, Alan Holdsworth, or The Contortionist. Yes, yes, and yes, times infinity. Doug from Buffalo, I'm working on a record for him right now, actually. I think it's him. Sorry, Doug, I don't know. I'm terrible. I'm the worst queer on the planet. Do not model yourself after me. I'm very bad training. Where does emphasis, in parenthesis, RIAA equalization, for example, come in your mastering process? Is it the absolute final step? No, it's not the final step. It's in all of the steps. You keep that in mind when going through all of the steps. I mean, because mastering for vinyl, like, there's EQ differences, there might be stereo image differences, there might be differences in how much it's limited or compressed, so you have to keep that in mind the whole time. Yeah, my mom just texted me and was like, that was awesome, we listened. I'm like, still going. Love you. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, did something happen with the stream? No, I'm checking on it. Looks good. Everything's good. All right. So John from Fort Collins, Colorado. Are you a fan of Daniel Lopatin? Is that how you say Dan's name? Lopatin? I'm sorry, Dan. I don't usually say your name out loud. Both of you seem to be largely conceptual thinkers when it comes to writing a record, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah, they're largely conceptual. I don't know much about his process. I've listened to a bunch of interviews with him, but I mean, I love the shit out of him and his work. And he's made a few gestures towards me in the past. I'm gonna share a story really quick because it's so fucking cool. My first interaction with him, and I've only had like 3, but my first interaction with him one day. Like, this is after I put out my first Fire-Toolz album. One day I sign on to, oh, my parents were talking about something else. Let me respond to them real quick. You were talking about the song. Sorry, LOL. Thanks. Yeah, go to fire-toolz.other. Fire-tool-other.bandcamp.com. I put up a song today. It's a surprise, and it's really good. Anyway, so John from Fort Collins, Colorado. I was talking about his question. Sorry. He was the one talking about One Tricks Point Never, or Dan Lopatin. And the story. I was telling the story. God, looking at my phone is like fucking me up. Yeah, so I just get on Instagram one day, and I think it was my friend Andy Loebs who sent me a screen cap or something, or a DM, or like tagged me or something in a post that Dan made. He posted my first album cover on his Instagram. I don't remember if he said anything in the caption, but he just like posted the cover of it. And I remember, like, it was just so surreal. Like, I could not even believe it. It was just so awesome. I mean, that's all there is to the story. I guess he found my album, found my music, and thought it was fun, and posted it on his Instagram. And he doesn't do that like a whole lot. Like, he doesn't like post a lot of like just like album covers from like some artist making music. And it was just yeah, it was really great. So I sent him a DM, and because he was playing nearby pretty soon. And he was like, I told the promoter to like try to get you to play. And I was like, really? That's really cool. But I didn't hear anything. And that's fine. But I mean, just the fact that he, thought of me. And that was after my first album, which I've taken down since then. So it's really cool that he liked it. And he left me a comment not too long ago when my last album came out, complimenting my guitar work in one of my songs, I think, or something. But I love him, and he's been a huge inspiration to me. Winter Quilt, a good friend of mine from Liverpool, England. What's your top 3 black metal albums of all time? Ew, I don't know. I'm such a black metal poser. Like, I like a lot of old, like, nasty black metal, like Furterdurk, and I like Burnout or early stuff, like that kind of like trashy black metal rock, super duper lo-fi nastiness stuff. I like that, but I also like, all the abominations of black metal. I was really into Life Lover for a while. I really like like shoegaze black metal. I guess you could call it black gaze. Crooked Necks and Circle of Ouroboros, or whatever it is. I love that stuff. And I don't know. I love. What a boring answer. Like, I like Dark Throne. Like, I do a lot. Yeah, I don't know about albums though. It's the thing about Fire-Toolz and the black metal influence. Like, honestly, I'm way more influenced by death metal and prog metal, and technical metal than I am black metal. But the vocal style of black metal is something that I'm really attracted to, like the high-pitched shrieking. So that's kind of like where the black metal comes in. But it's not a genre that I've been like. It's not a genre I feel like I should be deep into, considering how much it influences my music. But yeah, I'm more of a death metal person. Carter from Wisconsin, congrats on the new album. I hear a great amount of Rippington's influence. Good, thank you. In your music, despite it not being the same type of music the Rips make. What are some other bands and artists you love that are influential to your music, even though it doesn't sound like it? Well, most of the artists I listen to don't sound like me. I don't listen to very much like me at all. Yeah, I listen to so much. Well, there is jazz and new age influence in Fire-Toolz, probably even more new age than jazz, I guess. But like the stuff that inspires my music is like 80s jazz fusion, and I make the noisy stuff and the heavy stuff and everything, and somehow I feel like that stuff comes from the same place, that fusion and new age. Yeah, so you want to know about some other bands and artists? Well, gosh, it's hard to pick out any favorites. I've never ever been able to do the favorites thing. But well, I mentioned all those prog metal bands earlier, but let's see. There's some old jazz bands that never really went very far. They only had a few albums called there's Skywalk, and there is Active Ingredient. There's Checkfield. Richard Souther. These are, people that are classically trained in jazz, but like really prefer keyboards. There's this guitarist named Richard Smith, who had stuff under Richard Smith and Richard Smith Unit. I love sax players like Eric Marienthal, and Dave Koz, and Kenny G, honestly. If we're being real, he's incredible. His music is good. Well, okay, it can get, I don't know. I guess Kenny G can get a little, what's the word? One-dimensional, I guess. But the sound of one-dimensional smooth jazz is something that I love, regardless. So it's fine. Like, I can totally deal. Oh, poor Selena just showed up. Yeah, and I like a lot. I mean, I love labels like Windham Hill and Narada Productions, and all of the classic like jazz labels and everything are put out so much good stuff. And yeah, it's hard for me to talk about this because I just get so overwhelmed because there's just so many artists that I really love that I'm really moved by. Fowler and Bronca is a duo who put out a couple albums in the late 80s and 90s. Really incredible new agey stuff, fusion influence. Yanni's old stuff is incredible. Tangerine Dream, of course. So anything that sounds like that, I love. I love Mark Eisen, even though he hasn't done a whole lot of new age stuff. I mean, he's done all kinds of stuff, film soundtracks mostly, but I love his music. I love Eddie Jobson. He's got great like synthesizer stuff out there, and also some great prog rock stuff. Let's see, what's your favorite piece of equipment to use for your music? Carter also asks. Definitely Logic Pro. That's and because you can just the possibilities are endless with a digital audio workstation. I'm sure if I used Ableton, I would be doing even more than I am. Favorite physical format? Well, digital. I like to hear things as clearly as possible and the way that the artist intended them. So although I do love the sound of cassettes and tape saturation, records are great too, of course, but it's like I want to hear it. Like I want hi-fi, and if your record is lo-fi, I want to hear the lo-fi so clearly, and so well. So digital. What's your favorite animal that isn't a cat? Dog. Anything else would be illegal to say besides like bunnies. God, I love birds too. I'm getting so into birds lately, and squirrels. Like not even a joke. Squirrels are so adorable. I love them so much. I twice now I've been able to feed a squirrel from inside my room that's on my roof by handing him a peanut, and those moments were just magical. Ognos wants to know from San Francisco. Hi Angela, been mixing and mastering professionally for a relatively short time, a couple years. I'm interested how you got into vinyl mastering. Where did you learn the art of vinyl mastering, and how do you get your first opportunities to master records for vinyl? Thank you for all the amazing work you do. It's hard to find education on vinyl mastering, really hard actually, because it's something that you learn like in school and stuff, but you don't there's not a whole lot of education for free on YouTube about it, so you really have to dig. So I really digged, and I didn't find a whole lot from the like audio engineers that have YouTube channels, but I learned a lot from audio engineers who are like big cheeses, and they have interviews and they've done lectures at colleges and stuff like that, and they've talked about it. And also a lot of it's been trial and error as well, because the first couple vinyl masters I did, I was really just hoping I was doing it right, because I don't have like that facility here. Like I don't have the machine, like I can't make a vinyl master and test it. So I was just hoping at first, but they were so successful and they sounded so good, and the feedback I got was so good that I learned what something needs to sound like in the digital environment in order for it to translate very well to vinyl. And if you listen to a vinyl master on your computer, it doesn't sound as good as the digital most of the time, depending on the music, depending on the mix. So there's a certain kind of it not sounding good that I've learned that translates to vinyl really well. So, and I haven't had a problem once, not once has a manufacturer or anybody been like, hey, like, can you send this to us with less limiting? Or can you make the bass more mono? Or can you filter more 50 hertz out because you're throwing off the needle? or the stereo image gets too wide on these songs and causes a problem. Like, it's literally never happened. And I've mastered for vinyl like all the time now. Like, I didn't even want to necessarily. It wasn't really something I was passionate about, but I just started getting those inquiries, and I learned, and here I am. So you want to know how I found those opportunities? Vaporwave. Because when Vaporwave started, it was digital, 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 and then we got into tapes, and vinyl took off, and now there's so many old classic Vaporwave albums that people want to put on vinyl, but they weren't mastered for vinyl. They weren't even mastered, or mastered correctly anyway, most of the time, because so much Vaporwave is kind of amateur. And that I don't mean that in any bad way at all. Like, it's a way for people that don't really know like a whole lot about music, like composition and production, to get involved in making music. And so just a lot of early Vaporwave stuff was like, just made kind of not so well. So I am in the business of getting that stuff ready to go on vinyl. I do a lot of fixing, I do a lot of attempting to fix stuff that I can't fix, because you really just need to fix stuff in the mix. But a lot of people don't have their mixes anymore. A lot of times people only have like 128 kbps like MP3s that they downloaded from Bandcamp, and that's all they have for me to master. And it's not the ideal situation, but I work with what I have always. So I'm constantly like fixing stuff for vinyl, like making it work for vinyl. I do master for vinyl, like real mastering, like I get the mix and I master it for vinyl, but a lot of what I do actually is getting like a terrible master and then adjusting it, which is, it's cheating. It's polishing a turd, but it's making it so this can go on vinyl. So I do a lot of that, and it's really fun and really satisfying. Rob from Philly wants to know, curious about the recurring soccer ball imagery. Do you play or watch soccer? Do you have a specific aesthetic appreciation for the soccer ball? I like to imagine it's the latter. Well, it is the latter. I've explained this, I think, in maybe a few interviews, but I don't know where they are. So, for the sake of saving time, I want to not go into it, but I don't really know where to point you to. So I'll just make it brief. First of all, I'm just obsessed with spheres and spherical objects, and always have been. When I was young, maybe 3 or 4 or something, I had a dream that a soccer ball showed up in my backyard. And in my dream, I woke up and went outside and saw it and was like, oh, that's weird. I wonder where that came from. And there are all these holes in the soccer ball, and there are ants crawling in and out of them. And I just had that in my mind. And then a couple days later, I woke up, like for real, and that soccer ball, the one I saw, was in my yard. And it was like a small one, like it might have even been a dog toy. But we didn't live around very many people, except for like my grandparents and one other neighbor. They didn't have like sports balls. So I don't know how it got there. And I remember being like super, super young and having the thought, like, this is crazy. That didn't really happen, right? Like, I'm mistaken. I didn't dream this before it showed up, did I? Like, that's weird, right? Like, I remember thinking, even at my young age, like, having that line of thought, like, this is strange. I wonder if it's real. And I don't know if it's real. And honestly, it probably wasn't real. I probably did not precognize it. But I believe in the existence of that, like, absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt for me. So, sure, it could be possible, but I've never had really many other times in my life where something like that's happened. So it might have just been my weird kid brain mixing things up. But that memory always lasted, and I just kind of like, the soccer ball just feels, it just brings me back to my childhood and makes me feel good. And I don't think about sports whatsoever when I use the imagery or talk about it or anything. I've used the soccer ball to symbolize myself in my artwork. I also use just the red sphere without the soccer ball pattern to symbolize myself. So the soccer ball and the sphere kind of are interchangeable. I played soccer very briefly as a kid and did terrible and quit the season before it was over because people were bullying me and because I wasn't good. So, Daffodil from Vancouver. It's no secret that spirituality, philosophy, meditation, and other ideas around this sort of area are important to you and have guided your life in some non-trivial ways. Thinking about this dimension of your life and understanding, could you share an example or two of an idea or a piece of work or a concept you've encountered, maybe as well as a spiritual practice you engage in, that's had a notable or otherwise profound impact in terms of redirecting or bringing unexpected clarity to your life and day-to-day experiences. Maybe too in terms of bringing new direction in disposition towards your art making. Yeah, I've had experiences. They haven't been wild, out of this world blowout experiences like a lot of people have had. But when I say a lot, it's a small group. Most of us, our spiritual maturity just comes through suffering and trials and, education and spiritual practice. Any experience I might have had that has been really impactful for me, well, some of them have taken place during meditation. I remember one specifically. I was meditating on my lunch break, and I've written about it in several Fire-Toolz songs. Like when I say, just once in the grass on my lunch break, I materialized right in the center, and blah, blah, blah. It's a song off of Inner Being. And then I have a very, very vivid experience of being in my room, being super stoned. It was in the morning before work, and I was putting on my makeup, and I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, and I felt an incredible shift within me, and sort of multiple realizations that I couldn't articulate sort of settled in, and it was very just like, I was just like in awe. I was just like, wow. And I'm not gonna go really too deep into that kind of stuff, because it doesn't matter what your experiences are. What really matters is how you integrate it into your life. And an experience, who fucking cares what kind of experience you have, what kind of realization you have? It doesn't matter much if it isn't something real and more than a story to tell. So, yeah, so I've had things like that happen, and they have a huge impact on my life and my lyrics. I've also felt like I'm someone who has suffered a lot spiritually. It's hard to explain what I mean by that, but you could also say it's psychological, because I think they're one and the same. And yeah, my music has everything to do with everything I just said. I mean, my music is how I talk about all that stuff. So you wanted to know an idea of or an example or two of an idea or piece of work or a concept that I've encountered, or a spiritual experience that's changed stuff. So I guess those answers are good enough. I'm really, really in the business of not making a big deal out of an experience. I try to focus on what the experience means and how it plays out in my life. So we talk all the time on Twitter DM, though. Well, no, we don't really talk all the time on Twitter DM, but we talk on Twitter, and you can DM me, and we have DM'd, so we can talk more about this. Michael from Madison, it sounds like you love Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by Smashing Pumpkins. Same. It's also extremely clear from listening to your music that you love sick drum fills. Oh, God. You're so right. So my question is, what's your favorite Jimmy Chamberlin drum fill from Melancholy? Mine are the 7,000 fills he plays in Muzzle. That song is a fill. Jelly Belly. He does this. He could have done a blast beat, and he doesn't do it, because I think he doesn't hit the snare with his left hand. But just, okay, like the beginning of that song. Like when that song starts, especially when you first hear it, the first 10 times you hear it, it sounds like absolute chaos. Like heavy, crushing chaos, like in the very beginning of the song. You don't know where the meter is. You don't know it's 4/4. You just hear these crazy, like fast, like snare rolls and cymbal hits, like woo, and he's like, he's got such a fast foot, and he does that foot and like cymbal hits like really fast, like 16th notes, and I just love that, and I wish he did his snare on the offbeats during that part, because it'd just be like, that would be so cool. I just love inappropriate blast beats. Like, if that's not obvious by now, I throw them in. Non-Local Forecast had one on the first album, and there's a mini one on the second album too, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, Jelly Belly was really kind of mind-blowing at the time for me, but he's an incredible drummer. I love his drumming style, and I actually the only time I saw Smashing Pumpkins, it was the last show they played when their keyboardist Jonathan Melvoin passed away from drug overdose. Like, I saw his last show with the band, and it was also, I'm pretty sure Jimmy got arrested for heroin possession that night or soon after that too. So they kind of like, I don't know what happened, and like they might have had to cancel some dates or something for a while. But yeah, super influential drummer. Love Jimmy. Oh, Daffodil sent something else too. On your website, the following is written about you. Identity is not something that Angel is interested in claiming. Her lack of claiming a gender identity and the world's resistance to accommodating this freedom to do so are aspects of her worldly experience, but they do not define her essence, which is prior to the world, as everyone's is. I'm wondering if you'd feel comfortable speaking your worldly experience with regards to coming to resist and cast off these ideas of identity. First of all, not resisting them, and I'm not casting them off. I am setting them aside. They are next to me. They're in my view, but they are not a big deal. And maybe how you imagine aspects of the world could become to be more accommodating for reducible identity resistant folks in terms of experience in the usage of language. Okay, reducible identity with a hyphen, reducible identity resistant folks. So I think what you're saying is how could like my view be more accommodating of those who are resistant to the idea of, you know, no identity or setting the identity aside. Here's the thing with identity, and when I talk shit about identity politics, and when I say things about how I am not trans, I'm not a girl, I'm not a guy, I'm nothing, I'm just a human, that is just one level. There are multiple levels that operate and exist at the same time, and they're all equally as important. And I think that there should be a balance between them all. You know, the gender stuff, like at the same time that I don't wish to have a gender identity or don't feel like I have one, I don't feel a gender necessarily. I feel kind of feminine, maybe a little androgynous, but I just don't, I have no interest in gender identity or having a label. So when I say that, at the same exact time, well, first of all, that is just me. That's just me. It's not the way I think the world should be. It's what I think I should be because that's what I feel, so I am that. And when you hear someone else talking about their experience and it triggers a, hey, like that reduces me, you have to be careful to tell the difference between somebody projecting that and you taking it as it being projected when simply they're just talking about their thing. So I'm not accusing you of that or anything, but I'm just saying we need to be careful of that because you would like to know how it could be more accommodating to people who resist this idea. Well, like that's not a factor here because I'm not projecting anything onto you to where I would need to accommodate you. Like I'm just talking about how I feel about me. So I'm not saying that anyone else needs to feel this way, but when I was talking about those levels, I'll try to be brief. On one level, I feel no gender, and I have no gender. On another level, in this world that we live in, with these institutions and these social implications and this history and this culture, gender matters an enormous amount, and it needs to be something that people see and regard and are sensitive to because it has everything to do with the way our world like operates. And it, you know, it's a shame, but it's like obviously we live in a very patriarchal society, like in a very grand scheme, like zoom out, that's how it is. And there's so much oppression, and I don't need to tell any of you about the problem with gender oppression and transphobia and all that in our world. Like, I don't need to go into that. But at the same time, I'm not a woman, I'm not anything, I'm human. I'm I'm a soul that has a body that goes with it temporarily. At the same time, gender is extremely important in this world. And I hold both of those things very closely. Now, it depends on the stage you're at in your life. There was a time when gender was very tangible and real and in my face and present and seeped into everything I did, whether it was any kind of activism at all or just day-to-day life, like operating out in the world. It was a really big deal. I had to go through that. I had to feel that way. I had to experience things in that mindset. And then one day I woke up and I realized, holy fuck, I care not about this. Like, for me. And it was the biggest relief and weight that lifted from my shoulders that I could possibly describe. Like, it's just so much worry, so much pressure, so much weight, so much everything just left. And I'm so much happier now. And I'm pretty sure that deep down in your heart, if you find yourself the opposite of resonating with what I'm saying about gender and how I don't care about it in that relative sense that I was speaking of, like, just know that, like, it's simultaneously extremely important, and it's this ability to be able to hold multiple levels at once, and it's about being where you are. And where I am right now, I have no concern with correcting people on my pronouns. Like, I do that once in a while maybe, but not very much. Like, I'm constantly misgendered out in the world. Like, everybody is like, sir. I don't know. It's very symbolic of something very, very terrible that is very horrible for a lot of people. Me personally, I'm a little different with it. It doesn't penetrate anymore personally. It does. I feel the pain of the world, but it's like, me personally, in that moment when someone, maybe knows I'm trans and still misgenders me, it's like there's a separation there between me and that. There's a protection, there's a disconnection, there's a piece there that wasn't there before. So, we can talk about this more. It's so heavy, and I'm feeling pressured because it's, I've been at this for an hour and a half, and I think I'm at some of the last questions. I think there's some more in my email I gotta check. So we're almost done here. Thank you so much for staying this long. I'm gonna look through the chat later. I'm gonna make sure Doug hasn't texted me. No, he hasn't. So, yeah, we're getting close. So, Harrison from Oregon, favorite album? Also, what inspired your name? If we can do 2 questions. Well, I kind of already talked about the name earlier. Favorite album? No, I can't answer questions like this. I can't even do top 10 lists. I can't do top 50 lists. I can barely even make mixes for publications and stuff that ask me, because I can't pick my favorite songs. Like, it's just, I can't narrow things down. That's not how my mind works. So I don't have a favorite album. Let's see, what do I keep listening to lately? Yeah, I'm listening to just a lot of gent right now. It's bad. Diamond Daggers from Vape St. Clair. I know who this is. This is my friend. When did you know that Dream Theater was the best band in the world? I think I was in my single digits, like maybe 9, 8, maybe 7. My uncle Chris told me about them, and I just, like, he showed me Images and Words, their second album, and it just, like, changed my life. And he was like, oh, cool, so now I'm gonna get you into a lot more music. So he just fed me prog metal for years. He still is. I owe him a USB thumb drive right now of prog that is more modern, that he probably doesn't know about. So I've been meaning to make him that mix for a while. So I got to the end of the questions that were already sent in, and I'm checking my email because I think Doug sent me more questions from the chat. Okay, so I'm looking at these now. So Armando, window to window to window to window to part 2 soon. Yeah, so I have this song called Window to Window and another one called Window to Window to Window. I haven't thought about that. That's a really good idea. Window imagery is something that I really love, and I use it a lot. I have this note in my phone where I jot down ideas and stuff. Window to, I'm just gonna say ×4. I'll know what I mean later. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll maybe I'll use that for something. Maybe I'll write another sequel sometime soon, or maybe I've already written it and I just need to use that song title. Good idea. I'll send you a free whatever when it comes out. If it comes out, just remind me. Can cats get the Rona? Ron says. There is no evidence that a cat can pass it on to a human. Cats can get coronaviruses, and they always have. There's cats that go to the vet every day in the world who come down with it, a version of it. COVID-19. There's no substantial evidence that house cats can get them. There were instances of some wild cats at the zoo who became infected, and the research on that and the reporting is a little weird. I don't really know much about it. I looked into it at the time, but didn't look in too much. I think they're all okay now. I think they're expected to recover, so that's good. But I stay updated with like certain vets, and I like get Jackson Galaxy's newsletter, and I watch helpful Vancouver vet on YouTube a lot. And I am, 99.5% sure all of our house cats are safe, and I hope all animals are safe, and all people and all that. Super Check Availability asked, do you like this record, Jeff Palmer, Island Universe? Check it out. I have not heard it. It sounds like something I would love, so I'm definitely going to check it out. Anything with the word island or universe in it, it's usually something I like. Solakazi, I don't know, asked if you could collaborate with one artist, who would it be? Oh, God. See, there's another one of those instances where you're asking me to like pick my favorite thing, and I can't. Like, there's so many people I would love to collaborate with. Like, I can't even. I mean, you all know what kind of music I like. All of those people. I would collaborate with all of those people. I'd love that. I wish I was like skilled enough to collaborate with somebody like Pliny. But I mean, maybe one. I emailed him. I asked him if like how much he would charge to do a solo, because I know he does a lot of guest solos on people's albums. But he's probably pretty picky and choosy about who he works with. I haven't heard back, and it's been a couple months, so I guess it's not gonna happen. Derek Sherinian, who's like I guess you could say he's like a heavy metal keyboardist. He does a lot of heavy organ stuff, but I mean, he's also really versatile. He played with Dream Theater for a little while. He does commissions like off of Twitter, so I'm probably gonna get him to play a solo on my next Fire-Toolz record if it's not too pricey. Andy Lobes wants to know, Angel, what's your favorite Rippingtons track? Oh my God, stop with the favorites. Oh God, I don't know. Oh my God, the Ripping. Oh, I don't know, man. One song. Okay, I'll name a few that are really special to me. I covered Soulmate a while ago on a remix album. It's on the Fire-Toolz Other Bandcamp. It's a really important song to me. I have a special memory of my cat Breakfast with that song. I took a video of her a long time ago where that song was playing in my room, and I was just like filming her and like spinning around her and stuff. And so when I hear that song, I just think of her. And the first track on Weekend in Monaco is like one of my favorite songs of all time. It's got David Benoit on piano on there, and I think Jeff Kashiwa was their sax player at the time. It's the opening track, and it's just the most beautiful way to start your day. Like, tomorrow when you wake up, like, turn up the first track on Weekend in Monaco, like, real loud. And just, like, take your morning piss while the sun's coming up. So, I don't know how to... you asked a question earlier, Solakazi, K's something. If you could assemble a new age band, who would be in it? It's a little bit easier to answer because you're not making me pick one person. I would absolutely play with Richard Souther. I would want him on synth for sure. There would have to be a sax player. I'd probably have Eric Marienthal and Richard Elliott trade off. Maybe some Dave Koz in there. On bass, I don't know, probably Jimmy Johnson, maybe. Drummer, God, there's so many. Probably Vinny Caliuta, because he's on every other jazz record, so he might as well be on mine. And you, oh, I'm sorry, you said New Age, I'm naming jazz guys. Well, I said Richard Souther, but honestly, New Age and jazz are like made for each other, so, you know, just get a couple more synth players and then we'll be good. Probably, I mean, I feel like some of the obvious answers would be like Yanni or like Iasos or something. That would be cool. Because they're just epic composers. And what's your favorite Neely and Beato videos? Well, I found Adam Neely through his Theory of Vaporwave video, and I mostly liked it. And then I just got hooked, and I just like all of his videos, really. I like them all. I really like when he talks about fusion, obviously. I like when he's being accepting of stuff that other people, that like highly skilled musicians trash. I do think he's a little bit closed-minded about some experimental music, but you know, he goes to Berkeley. What do you want? And Rick Beato, it sounded like I was kind of like talking shit about Adam Neely. He's like one of my favorite people. Like I didn't mean anything by any of that. I was just thinking about like what my favorite videos are and what my not favorite videos are, I guess. And Beato, I don't know. I mean, he's great. He pisses me off on the regular, I guess, sometimes when he's going on rants, some of the things he says. But I love the guy. I really love his videos on what makes this song great. Obviously, like he's done Rush, and he's done Carnival, which is like a kind of a progressive sort of new metal-y type band I really love. I don't know. I can't really think of a favorite Beato video right now. I really love when he dives into scales and modes, like when he picks really interesting scales and does a video exploring them. I've gotten a lot of inspiration from them. They've helped me compose, actually. A couple of my newer songs that I've been working on, actually, came from videos of his where he would teach something and I went and directly applied it. And I think the last question, Doug can text me if he wants, if there's anything more, but we've been going on a while. So the last one I see here is, if at all, how does living in Chicago affect your music? Bonus, favorite record store in Chicago. How does living in Chicago has affected literally everything for me. Admittedly, it's been extremely... Let me hit this bowl. We're almost done. I've hardly smoked any weed because I've been talking so much because I've been paranoid about keeping you all for 2 fucking hours. I hate living here. But when I say that, I don't mean I'm like actively, continuously miserable or anything like that. You know, I don't walk around all the time going like, oh, fuck this, fuck this. When I say hate, I guess that's not the right word. But it's like, it's just, it's like putting a country person in a city and then just like saying, okay, like, do your thing. It's not like I grew up in a rural area, but it wasn't necessarily suburban either. I didn't live in a community or a neighborhood. I lived like down a long driveway next door to my grandmother, surrounded by forests and fields. We lived in kind of a blue collar area, middle class, lower middle class, some just lower class, like sort of mixed in. Not very much lower class, mostly lower middle and then middle. But you know, I I spent most of my time by myself. I mean, I played in bands, so I'd always have band practices in my house, and you know, I had, you know, friends I was really tight with, like here and there, but I've always been connected to a community. I've never been completely isolated or anything like that, but it's like I just liked being alone. I didn't want to be around a lot of people. I grew up around forests, and I, you know, woken up by frogs and birds and stuff, and you know, like, and I had a yard, and I moved to Chicago because I thought I was supposed to move somewhere like that to, like, you know, play music and be cool. I moved to Chicago because I was moving in with a partner that I had started dating long distance, and I wanted to move anyway, so it was like it was a good opportunity. It was like, I want to move. I thought I had exhausted all my options in Maryland. I had been doing like noise stuff for a while, and the Baltimore noise community did not take to me. So I kind of tried to do a little bit on my own, tried to merge like the punk and screamo and hardcore community like in with noise as much as I can, and they like tolerated me, but barely. I remember opening screamo shows doing like harsh noise, and it's very awkward. So I just wanted to move, so I moved here, and I just had no idea that I was gonna feel like like the air was made of concrete, and that sound waves were made of sirens and people screaming. It's too much for me. It's way, way, way too much. So when you ask how it's affected my music, my music is one way I've dealt with it. It has everything to do with my music in a way, you know? Like, not Chicago, but city life mostly. Well, there's some things about here in particular, you know, but you know, it's like living in that environment and hiding in my house, like this music happens like from that. So I would have to say it's affected everything. I don't want to speak too soon. I mean, I've been talking about moving forever, so I don't want to speak too soon and say what exactly I'm going to do, but I'm pretty sure that pretty soon, like within the next couple of months, I'm going to move to maybe about an hour outside the city. Well, I wanted to go to Kansas City or Maryland or somewhere up in Oregon, or you know, there was these different ideas we had, but I think we decided that we want to be near Chicago. I have a great therapist, and you know, my partner has reasons for needing to be here right now, you know, I don't want to leave Doug and Max from House Through Mountain. Like, I don't want to go away from them right now. I need to be like, they might not be able to just like drop shit by my house if I move like out into the suburbs, but it's just, the crazy thing is, it was time to move, so I knew I had to move, like soon, like it was such a priority for me. But everywhere didn't work out. So it took a while, but I think we finally accepted that you can move and you can get your spot in a nicer place that's more quiet, more spread out, without losing things like, you know, being near the House of Boys, and you know, if I was out of state, my insurance would change, so I wouldn't be able to work with my therapist without paying out of pocket, and just like, I feel really good about this decision. I feel really good because for the first time, I know I'm gonna move soon, and simultaneously I don't feel like I'm leaving everything. So yeah, probably be moving out to the boonies soon. So we'll see how that affects Fire-Toolz. You also asked about my favorite record store in Chicago. I don't know. I don't buy records. I don't go out. I mean, Reckless is great, right? Permanent Records was a really great spot. R.I.P. yeah. So Doug sent me a few more questions here. Would you ever do an acoustic album? I've done a couple. They're primarily acoustic. There's other stuff. A long time ago, I did these. Very sort of emo influence, but also kind of experimental. Look up The Human Excuse. There's an album called Return to the Golden Fall, which is my last one. I don't know, that was probably like 5 years ago? Maybe, yeah. And before that there was A Therapeutic Universe. I kind of like those records. There's a lot of, just, they're very saccharine and stuff. Very emo. But also, you know, lo-fi, kind of punk rock ethic, I guess. Some noise and field recordings and stuff. I don't know, I kind of like that stuff. I want to make more stuff like that soon, actually, because I'm kind of getting back into like second wave emo lately. Are some of your lyrics algorithmically generated? No. If there's time, I'd love it if Angela would talk about using Logic Pro as her main DAW, but no worries if not. Oh my god, see, it's way too late to get into that, but why don't we just chat sometime? We can do like a Zoom thing. Like, hit me up. I found out about your music from Nerd City. Do you get asked permission for your music to be in videos and shows a lot? Not a lot, but I usually say yes as long as they credit me. It's happened a few times. I would love if it happened more. Like, put my music in your stuff, please. Just, you know, ask me permission, credit me, and if you're making money, you should probably pay me some also. But if you're not making money, then maybe just credit me. But ask me first. Always ask me first. The Nerd City, the Nerd City guy is really nice. I didn't know about Nerd City when I first got a message, but or no, I messaged them first because they made a Reddit post about me and it like blew up. So I didn't even know what it was. So I sent a message and like he wrote back and I sent him a few free records and stuff. And I don't really know them, but I've watched a bunch of their videos on some wacky stuff. They're pretty cool. High Information Noise asks, was Angel influenced by any specific underground net scenes? And particularly, was she into early 2000s cybergrind, MIDI grind? I love how it was so fun, forward-thinking, and mostly made by teenagers. I was aware of it at the time, and I liked some of it, but I didn't get super into that. I had friends who were deep into that, but no. I think that a particular net scene that really had an impact on me, I guess, was, you know, C-punk and net art, like the stuff that came before, like right before vaporwave. And I mean, I've had a very strong internet life, like, you know, since AOL. So there's been a lot of like little communities I've been involved in, but thinking about underground music scenes, like no, not really. Besides like C-punk, I guess. I got really into trance and was in some forums and message boards and stuff, like in the, I guess it was the early 2000s. Yeah, early 2000s. But, you know, that's not really a net genre. That's, you know, huge international stuff. My sister, Megan, said, when you finished and released this recent record and knew it was done, what did you want or hope for your listeners? Like, what did you wonder about everyone receiving the record? A lot of times there's stuff that I hope for, but at the same time I don't hope for it because I'm not attached to people's responses very much. But at the same time, I do hope that people will understand what I'm saying, and so often they don't. Even a lot of the great writers that write about my stuff don't get what I'm doing, and they, you know, project their own ideas and have their own, they get what they get from it, and that's fine, but it's like not what I'm putting out there. And so what did I want or hope for my listeners? What I was hoping for is what I've hoped for ever since I made Interbeing and the 2 albums after that. I've hoped that people wouldn't think my music was angry, that they wouldn't take the vocals as me being mad or me losing it. me being out of control. They're intense, but I wanted people to feel the intensity, the strong intensity that kind of like burns your skin a little. Like when you're taking a shower and it feels really good, but it's slightly too hot. Like not to the point where you want to jump out, but it's a little uncomfortable. Like I kind of wanted that, but like in a beautiful way, not like a fire way. And I was hoping that they would perceive, you know, that intensity, but also the light and uplifting vibes that are almost always there. And for the first fucking time, everybody's doing that. Now I'm thinking back, like, I guess on Skinless X1 and, you know, Interbeing, like, I don't know. To me, I can hear a lot of light on those albums, like a lot. There's stuff that just glistens and shines to me. But I don't know, it took this album and perhaps this artwork and this press even maybe to kind of spread the idea that this album is not angry and it's not sad. It's about grief and loss and stuff, but it's not about anything that's like a problem. It's more just like stuff that's real and intense and can hurt and can also transform you for the better. And I was hoping people would perceive that, and like it's crazy they are doing that. So I'm so happy about that. Darian asks, what are some of your non-musical inspirations for your art? The weather, a cool breeze, snowstorm, rainstorm, thunder and lightning, just like days of rain, warm sunshine, being in a field, being in a forest, looking at the sky. I'm getting emotional. I know it sounds corny, but it's like, God, you know, that stuff, it really affects me. And I think part of the reason is not just because I love it so much, but because I don't get a lot of it, because I stay inside a lot, because I live where I live, and like this neighborhood is like not very fun, and you know there are parks and stuff within driving distance, but I just want to be in a more wider open area so I can experience that stuff in a way where I also feel like comfortable. Like I have a hard time being by myself in nature, like in Chicago, you know? Like there are areas that are much safer than others, but it's just years and years of that anxiety and stuff that make it so I just have a hard time like just relaxing in that environment and letting go. I feel like I'm only able really to let go and relax in my house. So yeah, it's gonna be big when I move, because I'm gonna have to get used to that. I mean, I remember I went to Maryland to visit a couple of years ago, and I stopped at a rest stop that was an overlook over this mountain. And it had been so long since I had experienced something like that, a couple of years, I was like afraid. Like it was so gorgeous and so open and all around me that I was like, okay, well, I guess we're done here. We should probably get back in the car. And like, you know, like, but I had no logical reason for feeling that way. It was just a body feeling. It was this intense, like, it was just, I guess you could say there is an element of agoraphobia in its original definition in there, fear of wide open spaces. Like, I'm not afraid of them, like, I don't want to be in them, like, I want to be in them, but they're just, like, so intense to me right now because I've been inside so much that it's very impactful. And that might be part of the reason why I get emotional, because I crave it so much, and the little bit of that I do get every single day, because I do make it a point, is just huge to me. I mean, now in the mornings, I sit by the window and hope it's not too cold for it to have to be shut. And I sit there and I just look out over, like, I look at the sky and look at the yards that are next to me, that, you know, people don't really live there. So it's like this mini, like, little meadow that I can look at. And there are a lot of birds around. I throw bird seed on my roof like crazy, so there's just like bird shit and birds always around, and squirrels, and I like to just watch them. I like to watch my cats watch them, and it just really, really impacts me a lot. And that is, you take that, you pour that into that gets poured into my music. That turns into music somehow. You know, sitting there and feeling a wind and hearing the rain and feeling a little bit of water splashing on my face. That's what makes a song. I don't know. It's weird. Doesn't make sense, but it's true. So yeah, I got kind of vulnerable and personal and said some things I kind of wish I didn't say, like being agoraphobic and but, you know, who cares? Who fucking cares? You know, it's real. So, you know, I would love to be this person who has all their shit together emotionally and mentally and just be like that good influence, but, you know, I'm still pretty fucked up, I guess. Okay, so I haven't looked at the chat whatsoever. I'm sorry, but thank you for being here. Charlie says, which neighborhood do you live in? I live in West Humboldt Park right now. I first moved to Pilsen, though. And yeah, like, you know, people are just like, oh, you should go here in Chicago, you should go there in Chicago, and there's a park, and there's a park, and you can do this, and you can do that. And it's like, I'm sorry, but, like, I need to get out of the city energy. I just do. I mean, I've been to the parks, and they're beautiful, but I just need to get out. I need the city to not be surrounding me, you know? So, yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's been 2 hours. Wow, that's fucking crazy. Thank you so much. I guess I'm gonna stop now, you know? Wow, time really passed. Yeah, alright, well, thanks everyone. I don't have a lot of time. I work so much. I have so much to do. I have so many emails to answer. But if there's anything that's like burning, and you really want to know, I'll share with you. You might have to wait a little bit. I'll save your email as unread, but just, you know, ask me. So thanks. I'm gonna stop streaming now. I also will probably keep this up because up on YouTube because I didn't say anything too terrible, I think, to where I would want to bring it down and edit it and put it back up. So I'll probably just leave it up. Yeah, thank you again, and yeah, I just want to say one more thing. You know, I talk about this gender stuff and how I don't want anything to do with it, but you know, I gotta tell you, there's a lot of pressure on me in the world to be a man, and there's also a lot of pressure on me to be a woman at the same time, you know, because people are just like, which is it? And I guess I just want to say, I guess I've been like a tiny bit worried that people would be like, oh, I expected her voice to be higher or more feminine, and it's not. So thanks for not caring about that. I mean, because why would you? It would be so stupidly insane for you or I to really care about that. But unfortunately, there's pressure there. So, yeah. So I felt vulnerable, but even though I didn't look at the chat, you all made me feel comfortable. So thanks for that. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop now and smoke all this weed I prepared for myself.